This episode of the Matt Feret Show is brought to you by the Brickhouse Agency. Brickhouse is a boutique independent health insurance agency that focuses on finding the right Medicare coverage for folks across the country. Matt's wife, Nikki, is the heart behind Brickhouse. She's great at making confusing things clear and is passionate about helping people find a Medicare insurance policy that suits their individual needs. To schedule a free one-on-one appointment with Nikki or a member of her team, head on over to brickhouseagency.com or simply call 844-844-6565 and someone will help you schedule a phone call or a Zoom meeting. The consultation is free because the insurance companies pay Brickhouse, not you. There's never any pressure or obligation to enroll. Your clearer, simpler Medicare journey is just a call or click away. brickhouseagency.com. Not affiliated with or endorsed by the government or federal Medicare program. Contacting Brickhouse Agency, LLC will direct you to a licensed insurance agent.
Hello, everyone. This is Matt Feret, author of Prepare for Medicare and Prepare for Social Security Insiders Guidebooks and online course training series. Welcome to another episode of The Matt Feret Show, where I interview insiders and experts to help light a path to successful living in midlife, retirement, and beyond. Welcome to The Matt Feret Show, practical conversations to help you thrive in midlife, retirement, and beyond. I'm Matt Feret, author of books and courses on Medicare and Social Security, and a former healthcare executive with decades of insider experience. I use that experience to help people make clearer, smarter decisions about health, wealth, lifestyle, and caregiving. Each week, I sit down with experts, insiders, and fascinating people to explore what it really takes to thrive, finding purpose, building stronger relationships, and creating a sense of meaning and community in the second half of life. Together, we'll light the path towards your wealth, wisdom, and wellness. Welcome to the conversation. Hey, everybody, before we jump into today's episode, I want to frame something up clearly. When people hear about month-long stays in Paris or Lisbon designed for adults 55 and older, it can sometimes sound like a luxury lifestyle brand or some sort of aspirational travel brochure or website. But that's not what this conversation is going to be about. It's about something much more universal. What happens after the job title fades, the calendar clears out, and the structure that once defined your days starts to disappear? Retirement isn't obviously just a financial transaction. It's an identity shift. It's a rhythm shift. And for many people, it quietly introduces loneliness and loss of purpose or a feeling of, okay, now what? Travel can certainly be escapism, or it can be a catalyst. So today's conversation is about using place, community, and shared experience as a way to rebuild connection and meaning, whether that's abroad, right there in your hometown, or anywhere in between. You may never move overseas. Probably most of us won't. But the deeper question still applies to everybody. How do you stretch joy instead of it just extending years? And that's what we're exploring today. My guest is Andrew Motiwalla, founder and CEO of The Good Life Abroad. Andrew has spent more than 3 decades in the travel industry, including time as a Peace Corps volunteer and as the founder of Discover Corps, a company focused on meaningful family travel. After working with thousands of travelers, including older adults, he recognized a pattern. Many people in their 50s, 60s, and beyond weren't just looking for vacations. They were looking for slower rhythms and deeper connections and a chance to live differently, even temporarily. That insight led him to create The Good Life Abroad, an immersive, month-long, community-based experience in cities like Lisbon, Paris, Barcelona, Florence, and Palermo, specifically designed for adults 55 and older. Andrew often talks about the idea of joy span. That's stretching fulfillment and connection and vitality in the second half of life. Andrew, welcome to the Matt Feret Show.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
I'm glad you are. So for people meeting you for the first time, I just gave you an intro, but tell us what you do in your words and how long you've been in the travel space. And I mean, this part of the travel space and how the good life abroad came to life.
Yeah. So at a high level, I've been in the travel industry for about 30 years, but I really zoomed in on this idea of 55 plus slower, more immersive travel just over the past 3 years. Like you said in the intro, I've met a lot of travelers who said these tours are great. They're really cool. They're fun. We could take our families, but I'm retired and I'm kind of tired of like getting on the bus, getting off the bus, going checking into this hotel or going to that hotel. Why isn't there something for me? People who like me who have time now that I'm retired or semi-retired. And that sort of sparked the idea for the good life abroad. And I thought, well, yeah, why isn't there like something to bridge the gap between totally on your own, like just go get an Airbnb, live somewhere by yourself, and then being on like a full service tour. There's what's in the middle there, and how can you provide like like light support? It's still independent exploration. You still have your apartment, but some guidance and also some connection to other human beings. Because let's face it, it can get a little lonely out there if you're just living in some place for for a month or two. And so that was the inspiration for the Good Life Abroad at a high level.
Thanks. So it's interesting because I've often dreamt, still have dreaming. I haven't made it a reality yet, nor I don't know if I will. But it's one of those things that's like, I'd like to, or you hear something at a party or something along those lines. I want to embed, right? I want to go to Slovenia, and I want to go to a city that isn't just Barcelona or Rome, and embed and get to know the community and sit at coffee shops for that kind of you know either you can still log in remotely and do your work if you're consulting or you're doing something part-time, you're semi-retired in that sense, or you're fully retired and be like, no, I want to sit and stay and make connections. Were you hearing stories like that? Is that kind of the impetus for this, or was it more along the lines of, look, I don't want to go spend 50 grand on a massive bus tour of South America, and I don't want to just get my own Airbnb and hope and pray that I'm I'm renting the right place 8 time zones away. Was it somewhere in the middle there, or how did you run into this? What did you hear over and over?
Yeah. So funny enough, I had this like rough idea about living abroad, like extended times. And it was all selfish, right? I was just thinking about my own retirement. What do I want to do? I live in San Diego, California. I love it here, but I'd love to, once I'm retired or have a more flexible life, I like to do 6 months here. And I think maybe a few months in Europe and then a few months tooling around the rest of the world. And so that was my idea. And so I just started with something on Facebook. I put a thing out. Has anyone else out there wanted to live abroad for a few months of the year, but not like completely, take off and be an expat? Um, and this is my friends, right? And they're just commenting, "Oh yeah, I want to do that. Oh yeah, I tried to do that." And then I sent everyone who said yes. I sent them a survey, a private message. I said, "Okay, you want to do this thing, and many of you didn't do it, right?" And do this survey. Why didn't you do it? Right? Everyone has this dream. I want to live abroad. They don't do it. And so I did the survey, and then the results came in. Um, I don't speak the language. What happens if I get hurt or sick? What if will I get lonely? Like, what if I get bored? All these questions. Like, what if it's a big decision, like book an apartment for a few months off of some photos, and the reality doesn't match, right? Like, we've all
Right.
had that experience, right? But
Sure.
and it's fine for a few nights somewhere, but if we're doing like 2 or 3 months, it's a little scary, right? It's a big investment. And so all these pain points, and I thought, okay, how do we solve for these, right? Let's distill it down to these things and let's solve for them. That really led to the next level of detail of the good life abroad. Okay, we need to have vetted apartments for Americans. If you ever had that experience in Europe where you're in the bathroom and you're on the toilet, you hit your head in the sink, or you're in the shower and you can't turn around, like, you could do that for a couple days, but also the older we get, we need a little more comfort. So like vetted apartments, we got to solve for the loneliness and kind of boredom thing. We have to have activities and events. We have to have community. We have to have support. And I wanted to make it totally turnkey. So you just press a button, fly to Europe, and we got it. And your whole dream just becomes reality.
Have you heard, and again, I was selfish in what I said, and it sounds like you were going down that path too, and you kind of threw that out on Facebook, is that a lot of folks our age and older, let's say, I'm looking at your salt and pepper hair. You may be looking at my salt and pepper hair. They don't want fast pace anymore. I mean, I've done the vacations where it's the classic American vacation of checklists. Well, I got to go here and I got to go here and I got to go here, and we got to get on the bus and we got to take the train overnight, and it's fun and it's neat, but it's also very typically, as I've come to understand American. What changes when you not only the time availability for people who are retired or semi-retired or able to work remotely or part-time, whatever that is? What changes somewhere around our age and above that they don't want fast-paced tourism anymore? Is it because they've done all those things, or it's just like, no, I'd like to live a little differently and into this immersion space?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. On one hand, they've done it, right? They've done the tours, they've done the cruises. And like you said, those are really efficient ways to see a lot of places in a relatively short amount of time, right? Like all of Italy in 12 days. I mean, you're going to see a lot of Italy in 12 days. There's no question about it. But I think what happens as you get older and you find you have the time, you also have an increased level of sophistication. Like, okay, I'm seeing all of Italy in 12 days, but I know I'm not seeing a whole, I'm not seeing it very deeply, right? And I know there's more to it than just the checklist. The checklist is great too, because that's totally valid way to travel and we all do it. And so I think at a certain age, you're like, wait, I could get much more out of this experience and I have the time. So why not? And also, frankly, I don't know about you, Matt, but I get tired. I get tired easily. I just flying to Europe. It takes me a few days to get over the jet lag. And then after a big meal, all I want to do is take a nap. Really, I don't want to get on a bus and see three more museums. I want to go, take a nap, maybe read a book. So I think it's we've done it, and then we have an increased level of sophistication, and we want more. And it's not for everyone, right? It's like a lot of people. I love my mom, but she still doesn't get why anyone would want to spend a month in Valencia, Spain. She's like, I was there in 2 days on a tour, and I saw like all the big things. I'm like, yeah, it's a different experience because you're not seeing the checklist. In fact, what we hear from a lot of our travelers are, wait, we've been to these cities before, Andrew, but we were on a tour. We were there for 2 days. It's like a wine tasting. We sampled it, but now I want to drink the whole bottle. And it's not just seeing the things, it's actually feeling the vibes and slowing down and changing your lifestyle to really immerse yourself into a different way of life.
How is that month-long living different than even a 2-week vacation? Not just a couple of days in Valencia, but, when we're talking slow, I think we're kinda talking, the immersive, the slow is really a month, like, to really get that coffee shop feel of, or, you run into the same person at the grocery store 3 times, and they speak to you, and maybe they invite you over for a glass of wine. So how is that different than just, like, even a 2-week vacation in one spot?
Yeah, yeah. I'll answer your question, but I'll start with what a lot of people do on our program because they know how to be a tourist, right? They've done this before. And so they show up and they just try to see as much as they can. And like every day, it's like, I got to go do this and that. Oh, and there's a Michelin starred restaurant. We have to eat there. And after the first week, I'm like, guys, slow down. You're going to burn out, right? Like they're even like, yeah, I'm feeling really tired and I feel really full. I'm like, you don't have to pack it in. You're like, actually got to go out of like tourist mindset and change the hat and be like the local. So and I said, what do you do at home? What do you do at home? For me, I go to the gym. I like to do yoga. I like swimming in the ocean. I live in California. And so I said, let's do these things in wherever, Valencia or Seville or Paris. And like, we can help you find a Pilates studio. That's what our staff is there for, to help you connect to the things you want to do. And I, I cook my meals. So sure, I love going out to eat when I travel, but also I like cooking. And then it's different, right? If you're in Europe, you're buying fresh produce at the market that day, every couple of days, right? You're not going to Costco and loading up your car with, huge amounts of things that you're going to eat over the month. You're going, you're buying something. And then in our program, we often include cooking classes, right? And try to learn local food. So then I like to try and make a recipe of something I learned in that country and use those local ingredients. So just the day-to-day life activities, working out, exercise, cooking, going to that cafe. And then we encourage people, go to that, like develop routines, whether it's a cafe or a yoga studio. But by having a routine, you start to have repeated interactions, which then lead to potential friendships or at least acquaintanceships or people like, oh, what are you doing here anyway? And I get that all the time at the gym. Like, wait, now you've just been here like 3 times in a row this week. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be here for a month, and I like doing work, working out, and this is what it starts a conversation about what I do in San Diego, and we connect. So it's absolutely what you said.
If I mean, we've both listed off very luxurious Western European locations. And the one thing I found, and it took me a really long time to get to Europe, considering my love for history and travel, it took me into my 40s to go, you know what? I've been a lot of places in the US and Canada, and I've never been over. I got to go. And when I went over there, the impression I had, I guess, going in was that it's expensive, right? It's not only is a plane ticket, but the expensive, but the hotels can be expensive, even if the star systems are different over there than they are here. I was actually shocked, however, and especially in a country like Portugal, how inexpensive the food was. It was not as expensive as it is over here. And I don't care if that's rural America or city. It was very affordable. And then when you went to the grocery store, that was also pretty affordable. And as you said, the freshness, yeah, just different. It's just different over there.
And that's
If
the
some
thing with living abroad for like a month. You're getting out of the tourist path, right? When if you're like in a town for 2 days and the restaurant's like tourist menu, you're going to pay out the nose. But the moment you're doing the local thing, it's like, oh, the locals go to like the prefixed, 15 euros for 3 courses. And you start to learn where the locals go and you realize exactly what you said. It's actually a lot less expensive than you would think.
Yep. If someone's thinking like I'm not a world traveler, I've always wanted to go, but it's intimidating. Is there a deeper takeaway that we can start to get into a little bit of not even putting a label on yourself, world traveler, but what's the deeper takeaway just between just beyond location and doing this?
Yeah. I think the common thread between with our travelers at least is not so much that they're travelers, it's more of a, an appreciation for other cultures, right? And a curiosity. They're curious people. It's like I have an intellectual itch I want to scratch, and I'm going to go explore that and scratch it. And it could take different forms. You don't have to even travel for these things, right? I think curiosity is just a good thing in general, but we have travelers who love art. Like this guy, Barrett, he's an accountant, retired. What do I do with my life now? I'm going to get into art. And he took a community college class on Renaissance art, came to Florence, explored art, right? He was scratching that intellectual itch, but it could be anything really. I think that's the common thread. And whether it's I want to dust off that Spanish from high school or that college French course I took, right? And like get back into it. I think all these people, there's some intentionality behind it, right? That's spurred on by curiosity. And I think everyone can have that, whether you're a traveler or not.
You have referenced the idea in your works and your prior interviews of this concept of this phrase joy span. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So credit where credit's due. Joy span's actually a concept coined by Dr. Carrie Burnite. She wrote a book called Joy Span. And the idea is just about we have lifespan, which is the number of years you live, but joy span is the number of years full of joy that you have. And really it comes down to the idea that there's things you can do in life to increase the amount of joy you have, especially in the second half of. And so for me, that concept really resonated. And when I read that book specifically and looked at some of the main pillars, it maps so perfectly to travel. Things like, mental stimulation, growing, right? It's like learning new things. You could do that at home, of course. But when you travel, everything is new. The language is new. The food is new. The customs are new, right? Your brain is, it's almost like in learning overload. She talks about things like connecting with other human beings, like relationships, friendships. It's always great. But when you do it when you're traveling, it's again, it's like on steroids. And something interesting about travel, I don't know if it happens to you, but I tell people things like I disclose like way more than if I was here. It's like you meet some, other traveler like in a bar or something, and you're like, hey, yeah, yeah, this, and suddenly like tell them about my divorce and like, this, you're like, wow, that was like TMI. But something about travel, it's almost like a safe space where you can share things, and like if I want, this whole thing can disappear as soon as I leave. But connection, the travel really fosters connection. And another thing that's a part of this healthy age and increasing joy is the ability to adapt to things. Because as we get older, sometimes we get set in our ways. And what better way to challenge that really than to pluck you out and drop you into, Nice, France, and living in the center of a French town? It's like, wow, there's going to be a lot of you're going to be pushed out of your comfort zone a bit, and you're going to have to adapt. And what's beautiful about that, I mean, sometimes it's hard for people, right? It's meant to be a little challenging. If you want pure comfort, go to the Four Seasons. You'll be very comfortable. But if you want to grow a bit, you want to get pushed out of the comfort zone, try something like this. But what's beautiful is after a month of living in the heart of a European city, you're like, wow, I did that. Like I'm I can do this. Like I took a lot of like, adaptations, right? Smaller refrigerator, walking a lot more, public transportation, not knowing the language, but I did it. And now you gain confidence. And then the world starts to open up to you instead of having the world feel like it's getting smaller as you get older. And I've seen that with my parents. And unfortunately, my dad, he's like, I don't want to travel anymore. It's just too much for him. And it's funny because my mom, is the opposite. She wants to go all over the place. But it really depends on each person's perspective and these kind of ability to push yourself, grow, become confident, and go further and further out.
Thanks. What you were talking about was reminding me of, I'm sure like me, you read a ton of books, obviously. And I read them too. And one of those books that's been more and more popular, a sustained level of popularity is this book, Die with Zero. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very popular, and there's a number of things in there. You don't have to agree with them all, but there was one point that the guy makes that I thought it's always stuck with me, and it wasn't necessarily just spend all your money and then die. That was not the one that stuck with me. Although that's interesting. The one that stuck with me that I didn't even think about, but makes all the sense in the world is you have a finite time on this planet, which we all know we don't like to think about, but it's also your travel has to be and activity has to be age appropriate. So if you're not going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro at age 80, you're just not. But at 50 or at 55 or somewhere in there, when you've got health and health span, you have to be age appropriate. You can go on a cruise when you're 110, right? You just sit there, you sit on the deck, you have a good time. But this kind of embedding or active lifestyle, it really is more important to kind of space those out given your age and your health. And I bring that up because I wanted to ask you, how is that concept of joy span different from lifespan or even health span?
Yeah. I mean, lifespan can be extended indefinitely on life support, right? But is that truly living? Where's the joy in that? No, health span is really important. It's a really important concept because it is about staying healthy. And what some of this research is showing is that if you increase your joy span, it can also increase your health span. There's positive health effects. There's talking of books. There's a great book called The Good Life. Okay, and I admit I borrowed it, for the naming the company, but it's a study. It's Harvard's study on happiness. It's the longest longitudinal study on happiness, and they published this book. And sure enough, the thing that comes out of it is surprise, surprise. To have a good life, it comes down to relationships and community and healthy relationships. And then there's a bunch of medical stuff in there about how that also affects like your well-being, right? Brings, having healthy relationships brings down your cortisol levels, right? So you're not like stressed out and angry all the time. Like you're happier, and that has positive health benefits. So these things there's an interplay between joy span and health span. And obviously, if now, of course, health challenges happen, right? But what Joy Span would say is there's this idea on adaptability, and adapting is like the ability to reframe things. right? It's like, oh, this is a bad thing. Well, can I reframe it and look at it? No, this could be an opportunity for growth or an opportunity for learning or an opportunity to explore in a different direction than I originally thought. And if the more you can do that, right, the more joy versus the more, instead of having frustration. And that can also have a positive interplay with health span.
And you mentioned community a couple of times, it's I mean it's obvious, right? If you go to Nice, you brought Nice up for a couple of days, you're not going to really get much community play. But when you go for a month and you really are intentional about getting into the community, I would imagine you would say that plays a very central role, not just the travel part and the embedding part, but the community part of doing this long type of travel and embedment. Is that a word? In such a
It's not a
central role.
word.
Yeah, well, it some conjugation that I think was wildly incorrect. Either which way, you get what I'm saying. It's the community you can find even abroad, even in 30 days, that can extend joy.
Yeah. Community is the secret sauce. It's the thing that takes a great experience and it amplifies it, right? Because you're sharing it amongst people and then you have these shared memories you've created. And if you do this on a repeated basis, right, the joy can actually expand. Imagine a simple thing. You make some new friends when you're in some different country. It's a little bit more intense because it's like totally new and different. And then you might stay in touch with that person. Then you might meet up with them back in the United States and you like, oh, hey, I'm going to be coming through your neck of the woods. You meet for a drink and you reminisce. And so that experience you have now is like memories and it leads to so much more. So community is actually what this whole concept is about. People don't realize that. They think, oh, I'm just going to go for a month. Oh, it's a nice apartment. The Good Life Abroad provides. We're going to have some fun activities. But what they don't realize at the beginning, but they do understand at the end is I have found my tribe. These are fellow lovers of other cultures. These are cultural appreciators. If we're going to be inventing new words today, cultural appreciators is the word I invent. And because they connect through these activities and events we put on, but then like they're off doing their own thing. And what I mean by that is we intentionally foster these connections. Like we have these like welcome parties, we have these mixers, we have these lunches and happy hours and different activities. But the idea is to kind of suss out people's different affinities and interests so that you might be in a group of like 16 people and you're like, oh, these 3 people are really into like art. Maybe they're artists or lovers. These are some history buffs. These are some guys who just want to go to a sports bar, right? But then you connect around these shared affinities. And it's really cool because then, hey, there's a concert in town. Our staff might recommend like, the opera's going on and all the music buffs. Let's go do that. And for other people like, oh my God, opera, that's the last thing I want to do. And like, they'll go do that thing. And so the community starts to take on a life of its own. And that's really beautiful. That's where those friendships are forged. And and that's where the joy starts to amplify. And what we find is people stay in touch after the program. They then come back for another month with us in a different city, maybe the next year, but they connect with those friends that they made and then they all go there. And then we've got these posses roaming Europe of old people and they just want to keep doing this. And what they say to us, we're going to do this for as long as we're physically able to. There's a window of time, exactly what you said, Matt, is it's a window of time that I can do this. And so let's, at least do once a year. Let's go with the Good Life Abroad somewhere.
This concept of loneliness, I've talked about it before on the show. And it's one of those words that sounds, nobody really uses it and likes to use it because it kind of sounds sad and mopey and kind of, folding on the inside. But I mean, I think anybody listening or watching, and feel free to disagree, it's really hard to make new friends past the age of 40. You and I probably grew up in very similar areas. Hey, go out and play. When it's dinner, come home. When the streetlights go on, come home. And I've got kids in their 20s now. It was very different, and Gen X are here, and I still shoved them outside, but it was very different. And I can even just look at my neighborhood, and I have 12 houses on my court. I don't know them all, and I've lived here for 15 years. It's just the community can be really, really hard. And when you retire or you transition to part-time or consulting or any of those combinations of not physically going to an office every day, it can be very lonely for any age. What patterns have you seen in people and in clients who are transitioning away from full-time work, that this type of thought process and this type of travel has helped?
Yeah. It's exactly what you said. It's like, I'm no longer the guy from HR, right? That's my identity. What was my part of my identity? I'm not the dad at the PTA. The kids are grown, right? So who am I? And the beautiful thing is about retirement or semi-retirement is I can now redefine myself however I want, right? Whatever interests or, intellectual curiosities ahead, I can reinvent. And so that's uh, something we see a lot is people who say, okay, I'm going to use this. In fact, some people even say, this program of yours, it looks like a college study abroad program for old people. But it's kind of is, right? The thing is,
Yeah.
there's no grades, there's no classes, and everyone can make their own adventure. But it's exactly what it is. Is like we give you the canvas onto which to paint your own story, and everyone's could be a little different. So, like Barry, the accountant, got into art, and now he's an artist, and he's got a new identity, and and then Linda, she dusted off her college French, and now she's Linda, the one who makes the French food and hosts French dinner parties for her friends back in Columbus, Ohio. And like she's a francophone, right? People take it in different directions, but it's exactly the time. It's a great opportunity. It's a time to take advantage and seize that opportunity. And we see it all the time, and everyone's is different. And we have a lot of about 30% of our community are solo travelers. And we see a fair number of people who get divorced later in life. And that also leads to like a bit of, like we've always been two, right? Now I'm one and I feel a little off balance. And how do I reinvent myself? Like, what do I do? What's the next chapter in life? And what often they're doing is they're going back to their core values. That I used to love travel. It made me so happy. I'm going to try to do that go with the Good Life Abroad, for example. And what they do is they end up meeting other solo travelers who are going through something similar, or maybe a widow or whatnot. And now they have community built in. Like, oh, okay, cool. Now we can go off and explore, and I don't feel alone. I've got like buddies around. So yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool. I think one of the points you're making, and part of what you do, well, a big part of what you're doing, is it's different than just me going on Airbnb and clicking, you know, poking around Valencia and then getting a place for me and my wife. Or if I'm solo, just me, and then trying to figure it out on my own. But what you're doing and talking about is the people going through life transitions, including not just retirement, loss of identity, whatever, but also free time. But yeah, the solo piece, the gray divorce piece, I've covered that before. That's a huge thing that's underreported. You're building shared adventure. And it's not just shared adventure to help people kind of rebuild their identity. It's to discover new. It's getting over the job title, maybe. But it's also, yeah, my partner's gone. Now what? That shared adventure, I'm sure, has to help people.
absolutely. It's I did study abroad in college. Those friends I made, that adventure, it was sort of for me, it was the first time really going off by myself without my parents, right? And going through the shared adventure. And those friendships are so tight. They're just as tight as some of the friendships from people who I went to 4 years of college with. And it's it's powerful stuff. Travel. It's a catalyst.
Yeah. And your programs very intentionally build in things like social lunches and, like you said, lectures. And if you got a bunch of people going to a opera, awesome. If you got a bunch of people going to a metal show, that would be me. Awesome. Lectures, language study, fitness, and volunteer opportunities. Why is that kind of structure important even in retirement? Why don't you just put a bunch of people on a boat like it's in college? What is it called in college when we were going through the semester at sea? You just
Semester
put a
C.
people on a boat and see what happens. This is more structured than that. Why is that type of structure important even in retirement or semi-retirement at these ages?
Yeah. Yeah. We do the way to look at our program is like a scaffold, right? It's not like the full building. We just have like a scaffold with certain events, and we create that structure intentionally because we we see it as touch points when the community comes together, and we can start to foster those friendships and those connections. And for example, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we don't have anything planned, right? You're on your own, you're exploring a city. So on Tuesday, we have something called our Tuesday Lunch Club. And it's great. It's very intentional. One, it teaches you about new foods that you might not. We pre-order a bunch of great things. The wine is flowing. It's a lot of fun. So you learn about new foods. We pick places you probably don't go to. You might not explore on your own. But most importantly, it's a time for the community to come together. Like, hey, what have you been up to? Oh man, we went to the next town over, and everyone's sharing their adventures, right? And it's like a beautiful time to connect, swap stories, and then that's really where a lot of their friendships are formed, because they haven't seen each other for a few days. And then we do something on Wednesday, some kind of cultural activity, and then Thursday we do our happy hour. We call it our happy to be 55 and older hour, and it's it's right before the weekend, right? So it's like, what do you got going on this weekend? Oh man, we're gonna go to like the local football soccer game. Right?
Football, yeah.
We're gonna go here. Oh, that's cool. And so it's we try to build these connection points at strategic moments in the week. And then it sort of crescendos at the end with this big farewell party. And that's typically something kind of beautiful, maybe a boat ride, a rooftop bar party. It's something where it really brings the community together, right? A little bit of emotion. Um, and it fuses that group. So that scaffolding is very intentional. And we don't want to overburden it because again, we see the scaffold is holding up the canvas and the canvas is blank. And everyone's picture that they draw on it will be different, right? Someone will be foodie, someone will be language, someone will be volunteering. Someone will just be like, I'm just here to chill out at the coffee shop and read books and, you know, like have a good time, have some good
Yeah,
food.
it sounds like you're giving them the blank canvas, but you're also putting paint to the side for them to use.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we have
Yeah, but
staff, right? The local staff members there say, what do you want to paint? I can help you. You need new colors, new brushes. Like I'm a facilitator, help you achieve what you want over the course of this month. Our local staff, they meet with everyone one-on-one at the beginning of the month and they get to know them and say, what do you want to do this month? And then they help build that plan out, right? Oh, I want to go to Venice. Great. Here's a link to buy the train ticket, whatever the thing is, right? They really try to facilitate each person's individual dream for their month.
so not everybody is going to want to spend a whole month abroad. So who tends to thrive in your programs and who might struggle?
The people who struggle are the people who can't take off the tourist hat, right? They just got to go and pack it in. Um, and it's nothing wrong with packing in if you've got that stamina. I don't. But they are sort of missing the bigger point of the program. And often those people would be better off suited in a hotel. They want to be a tourist for a month, which is different from what we offer. Because for us, it's live like a local. And so with our program, you have your own apartment. And yeah, there's property management if something goes wrong, like, the water is, hot water is broken or something. But it's also you're you're living in apartments. Oh, I would like to, I don't know, have some flowers or some more towels or something. What we would say is, yeah, go to the market like local people and go buy the things. You're really, it's your apartment, right? And so some of these people who are just in tourist mode, like, I just want to call reception and have them bring up whatever I want. I want room service. I want this. That's missing the point. Part of this experience, I actually love going to home houseware stores in other countries. I think it's fascinating, right? And if you're into this idea of living like a local and like, oh yeah, let's go buy some picture. I tell people, I think it's cool to go buy a picture frame, bring a picture from home and buy some flowers and make your apartment feel like you're home for a month, right? Not just like I'm in some random place. It costs $10, but now you have flowers and picture of your, kids or your parents or whoever. No, I feel like I'm at home. And those people thrive.
The adaptability again. So for someone
Adaptability.
who's never traveled before or never wants to leave their home country, what principles, if any, can your model can be applied locally or at least in their own country?
Awesome question, Matt. building joy doesn't have to come through travel, right? These same things around learning new things, right? Doesn't have to be in a foreign country. Just taking a class or learning a new sport, a new hobby, new language, you could do that at home. So learning new things, connecting with other human beings. Part of that is you got to be proactive. You got to put yourself out there, right? By maybe joining a club or a faith group or something where you're going to be exposed to a lot of new people. That will lead to new connections with people and perhaps new friendships. I think that's also really important. So community at the local level as well. Then adaptability. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but how do you reframe things, right? How do you frame so that challenges become opportunities? How do you push yourself maybe a little out of your comfort zone? Maybe it's trying a new hobby or sport. I mean, I still suck at pickleball, right? But I can adapt to it and I can get used to that, and over time I'll probably get a little bit better. But adaptability is a key thing because it helps build resilience and the ability to overcome these difficult things. And the last thing is, I don't know why, but I find that people are often nicer on vacation. But why can't we just be nice to each other back at home? And can I set up myself like a daily kindness goal or a weekly one if I'm, like just treating people maybe at the grocery store a little nicer, giving them a compliment, or you don't have to. I mean, some people can go ahead and volunteer. I don't. I don't think I have the time, or maybe I don't make the time to volunteer at home. But I think, how can I be a kinder, nicer person on a more regular, consistent basis? And that also increases your joy and the joy span, right? All these things kind of come together, but you don't have to travel. Travel just seems to be a really fun way to amplify those things.
Let's talk tactical and practical reality for a moment. How do people think about logistics? So first one, big one, healthcare, right? So if people are, if they've already got chronic conditions. I mean, I've been around Medicare almost my entire professional career. So I know that there are different avenues of Medicare insurance that cover overseas that don't. And then you hear somebody saying you need to buy expat insurance. Well, who the heck sells that? And do I buy it from my agent or online? And how much do I need? Do I really need it? Uh,
Yeah.
where do I think about that? And then language barriers. I took so much Spanish in high school and college and can barely order at a restaurant. Should I be intimidated by that cost? Right. We haven't talked cost, and obviously you don't need to get into specific numbers, but the idea of cost, there's one thing for the plane ticket, the other thing for the apartment, and then what? And then the last piece is safety. So there's really kind of like, okay, cool, I want to do this, or I'm thinking about this, and this sounds like a great idea, but then I'm going to have all these things hit my head of like, okay, well, wait a minute, what the heck happens with my health insurance? What happens if I can barely order in a Spanish restaurant? What happens? How much is this? Is this $100, $1,000,000? And then safety. How do I know if I'm living in a great neighborhood? Do I sit there for 5 hours and Google neighborhoods that pop up in Madrid? I don't know. How do I think of this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, all those questions that you're asking are big questions, really important. And those are the things that prevent people from making the leap, right? Like it's just overwhelming. Too many things to think about. Um, I don't know anything about Medicare yet. I'll
That's all
personally
right.
find
You
out.
got me. Just call me. I got you.
On that. But what I do, so that's all I know is that we had to solve for that. And that's a really important to our people. So this is baked into the program for you. You come on our program, you've got $100,000 travel medical insurance and $500,000 evacuation insurance. We also then, our local staff, they have a whole safety plan in place. If something happens to you, we can connect you to English speaking medical care in any of these places. We've got that all prearranged, right? It's part of our safety and planning that we do. Because what happens, some people just want to go do it on their own. Like, oh, I'm just going to get an apartment, Airbnb myself. Okay. Then what happens when you like fall or hurt yourself in some way? Like that's that's the worst time to then figure out, okay, so how do I find a doctor? It's like, no, I'm in pain. So we try to plan for these things, have risk management plans in place so that we can connect you to good quality English speaking medical care in any of our cities. Cost, but there is a cost to this, right? Because we have a person who's literally at your beck and call. I mean, literally we have staff that from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Our local person is available by text message. Like, I'm lost on the subway. And if it's an emergency and it's on the weekends or nights and something bad happened, God forbid, you can call them. They're there. Like, okay, we'll help take care of you. So there is a cost to this. And it ranges from city to city. Smaller cities, $5,000 to $6,000 per person for a whole month. More expensive cities like London and Paris obviously would be like 10,000. I mean, quite expensive. Um, so there's a range, but you're getting a lot for it, and we're simplifying the whole process so you don't have to think about all these millions of details, including things like safety, right? The apartments we vet are in certain neighborhoods. We literally have a staff member who walks that area at night before we commit to any apartments. There's someone who's literally like checking out, like, sit in a cafe. What do you see? Walk there at night. What's it like? Um, and we provide orientation, of course, in the first full day of the program. We do an orientation, health, safety, cultural norms, what to do, what not to do to keep you safe. All very important things. And we just try to make it really easy and turnkey for you.
Yeah, turnkey was what was coming to mind for me. So it sounds like you design these experiences. Again, I'll go back to your concept of the canvas and maybe my concept of the canvas and the paints and the brushes set aside. You can pick up 15 different brushes and 15 different colors or one. What other things do you design about these experiences around that support measure? You talked about healthcare and what if something happens and the not so good or not so bad neighborhoods. How else do you design these to feel supportive and not just overwhelming?
Yeah, I think really comes down to what we call the community manager, that person in country. Because each person's needs are a little different, the meetings that we do with them, one-on-one meetings, or with each couple or individual traveler, and just getting to know them. So, for example, you might have someone says, "Hey, I have a bad hip." Just we need to know that, right? Like, just little practical things, or I can walk no problem, but it can't really go uphill. Okay, that's good to know, right? So we can even plan activities accordingly. And then we ask you, what do you want to pay on your canvas? And that's where we try to facilitate as much as we can do. And that person, again, just being available on text message or for a call at any time, it's super helpful. So that person is sort of your local friend from the neighborhood who's with you, like in your pocket, literally, through text message while you go and explore things. So you're like somewhere, I'm in some neighborhood that I had never been in. What can I do here? What do you recommend? And they can recommend things. Like, oh, you should try this restaurant or this museum that no one goes to. That's really, interesting. So it's sort of like we assign you a friend for your entire month who's really knowledgeable, and they're always scanning the news to see what kind of cool things are happening in town, and they're recommending the coolest things to you. So it doesn't really get much better than that.
No, that sounds awesome. Where do I how do I get this? Heck, I need one of those people in my hometown. Because I mean, how many mornings do you wake up or Friday nights you go like, what's going on this weekend? And you're going around to random calendar sites yourself. That sounds awesome. Kind of zooming out a little bit as we start to wind up the episode. If someone is feeling, I'm going to talk about joy span again and your perspective and travel building into this. If someone's feeling stuck or restless or unsure about what the next chapter holds, what would you say to them?
Wow, it's a big one. I think changing your perspective, right? You're getting stuck because you're seeing things in a certain way and you don't really see alternatives. So if you can somehow change your perspective, you might get a different view of it. And how do you change your perspective, right? Travel is an easy one. You're really physically changing your perspective. But going off and meeting other people who may think a little differently from you, just connecting to new friends or new people, they can bring in a new perspective as well. Um, and so things like connecting to whatever community means for you in your life. And if you don't feel like you have a great community, going out and starting to form that community and then kind of bringing them into your world and you're getting their perspective on things can also help see that. I think for me, I like books. Books give me a new perspective, right? Or podcasts even, that helps like get another person's perspective on the way things are. And I know, of course, everyone should listen to your podcast, But one thing that I do that some of my friends don't do is sometimes I'll just put in like a question I have into the search box of all the podcasts, right? Because most people just like follow like, their 10 podcasts. Like I listen to these 10 things. But like sometimes you just put in a question and you find some random podcast that you'd never even heard of, but it's talking about this one topic that's stuck in your mind. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's a whole other perspective. So I think podcasters are really unique because they think deeply about their little corner of the world, and that brings in a whole different perspective for people, which is hopefully what we're doing for people today.
Yeah, I hope we are. If you look ahead, and again, we're zoomed out now, where do you see this idea of intentional community-based living? Because it's not just travel. I mean, we've used the word travel. I've used the word slow travel, right? It's really community-based living. Where do you see this heading in the next decade?
Well, you see it already in the United States with 55 plus communities, right? Um,
Okay.
so that's one of the inspirations for what I do. It's like these are almost think of it as pop up 55 plus communities, but instead of the golf course being the center of attraction, it's the entire city of Lisbon or Porto, right? So, but where I could see this going is mixing it up a bit. Maybe you have Europeans coming communities in the United States. You have people from the United States going to have communities there. You could have there's different ways to slice and dice community. There's an interesting thing I saw. Think they do it somewhere in Europe where they're creating communities with young people right out of college and older people who are having mobility issues and creating mixed communities like that, where the younger people are helping and learning from the older people, and they're overcoming a lot of these like prejudices and preconceptions, but it's also just a way to create some kind of employment and living, affordable living for these younger people, especially in some of these cities where there's affordability crisis. Um, so community can take on these different forms. And you could cross pollinate across cultures, across age groups. You see more and more co-living starting to happen. I think that's another
Yeah.
result of the affordability crisis.
Yep.
Um, so I think you're going to see community uh, become more central to people's how they see the world. I think people will see the importance of it, but it's going to take on a lot of different forms. It's going to get sliced and diced in different ways.
Yeah. That's a great response, and it reminded me of I was having a offline conversation with someone just the other day, and she told me you should absolutely do a 55 plus community because you hear that and you go, that sounds like a lot of pudding and bingo. Not true anymore. And also, here's the point she made, which I think relates to the types of programs you put together is, yeah, but those communities, everybody wants, they're there because they want community. They want to be your friend. It's not like living in your neighborhood where they're just living and going to work. And, if they know 2 out of the 12 neighbors, great. They all want to learn and be in a community and be friends with you. And I was like, I never thought about that. It's not just the bad connotation of pudding and bingo, but it's the good one of like, yeah, people are specifically moving in those communities to have experiences, to put themselves out there in ways that they haven't before. Similarly, your programs are sounds like they're geared towards not only those types of people, but also geared to pushing people who may not have that kind of at the forefront of their brain into that mode because of that sense of community and what you're building there. Really interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those communities will surprise you, Matt. I visited some of them just in my work, and man, it's not your parents' retirement community. I mean, there are so many classes and activities and sports and events going on. And so it makes it really easy to be curious because there's lectures rolling by. And that's exactly the kind of thing we try to incorporate in our program as well.
Yeah, do you think again? Look again. We've zoomed out here. Do you think more people are currently and will continue to rethink what quote unquote retirement actually looks like?
I think more, well, one, even though we're basically we have more vitality longer in life, right? We have great medicines. There's all sorts of advances and reasons why we're doing this, and so there opens up more opportunities, right? And that is creating people have been looking for how do I fill that? how do I fill that bottle of vitality I have that a little bit later into life? And so they're going to look for different ways to do that. And community is going to be a big part of it. Health and wellness is going to be a big part of that. Um, and travel is obviously going to be part of that. I think we're at the intersection of a couple of those trends, but even domestically, you're seeing those trends with these 55 plus communities. Some of them even have like longevity centers inside of them, some of these really high end ones. And so I think I may be getting a little off track from your question. Sorry.
No, you
Um,
aren't.
but yeah, it's a sort of a new because of the massive wave of people getting older. You cover this a million times, but it's also our health span is increasing, and so it just creates this opportunity. People got to fill this, and the question is, how are you going to fill it? Are you going to be intentional about it, or are you going to just be passive about it and let it all kind of happen to you? And that's the question I think everyone's got to ask themselves.
I think there's a whole wave of people that saw what their parents did, and rocking chair on the front porch and the gold watch from the company, and went, nope, not me, not doing that. I think that's, and then look, I mean, all you have to do is doom scroll through Instagram, and you're going to pop up, these sayings of who made this deal up. Work 45, 50 years of your life and then retire and die. I think that's just becoming more of the mainstream. Like, yeah, that doesn't sound very good. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. And we've all heard stories of people getting sick in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And I think it's just much more in the public consciousness than it has in prior years and prior generations. That's my last pontification for this show. Where can people learn more about you and the good life abroad?
Sure. Just go to Google, type in The Good Life Abroad, and we should be at the top, or thegoodlifeabroad.com. And if you want to get in contact with me, it's really easy. Andrew at thegoodlifeabroad.com.
Thank you. And of course, we'll have all the links in your email address on the episode page on the mattferretshow.com. Andrew, this has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Matt.
And yeah, I hope you can tell I love these topics and I love travel. And I don't know, who knows? Maybe I'm going to be emailing you soon. What I appreciate about our conversation is that it's not really just about Europe, right? We didn't spend much time talking about where to get a good a pasta dish in Italy. It's about designing a life, and it was about designing a life that feels intentional and connected and meaningful, especially after the structure of work, in air quotes, work changes. So if somebody spends a month in Florence or simply builds stronger communities in their own hometown, the deeper goal is really the same, as you said, to stretch joy and to deepen relationships and live the next chapter or chapters with purpose. So to everybody listening or watching, thinking proactively about how you want to live and connect and grow in the years ahead is how you support not just your wealth, but also your wisdom, a big part of what we talked about today, and your wellness. That all ties together. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Andrew, thanks for being on the show and being a part of this community. It was really had a great time.
Thanks, Matt. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining me on the Matt Feret Show. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a friend and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. If you're on Apple or Spotify, a quick rating or review really helps more people discover the show. For more resources, visit themattferretshow.com and sign up for the Matt Feret newsletter. And if you or someone you care for needs Medicare guidance, book a no-obligation consultation at brickhouseagency.com. Helping people make smarter choices as they age is my passion. This show is here to light the path towards your wealth, wisdom, and wellness. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. The Matt Feret Show, related content, publications, and MF Media LLC is in no way associated, endorsed, or authorized by any governmental agency, including the Social Security Administration, the Department of Health and Human Services, or the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The Matt Feret Show is in no way associated with, authorized, approved, endorsed, nor in any way affiliated with any company, trademark names, or other marks mentioned or referenced in or on The Matt Feret Show. Any such mention is for purpose of reference only. Any advice, generalized statistics, or opinions expressed are strictly those of the host and guests of The Matt Feret Show. Although every effort has been made to ensure the contents of The Matt Feret Show and related content are correct and complete, laws and regulations change quickly and often. The ideas and opinions expressed on The Matt Feret Show aren't meant to replace the sage advice of healthcare, insurance, financial planning, accounting, or legal professionals. You are responsible for your financial decisions. It is your sole responsibility to independently evaluate the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of the content, services, and products of, and associated with, The Matt Feret Show, MF Media LLC, and any related content or publications. The thoughts and opinions expressed on The Matt Feret Show are those of the host and The Matt Feret Show guests only, and are not the thoughts and opinions of any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Feret Show, nor is The Matt Feret Show made by, on behalf of, or endorsed or approved by any current or former employer of the host or guests of The Matt Feret Show.